There is so much political noise over conversions, but is there as much noise over brutality and atrocities on Dalits? I'm Barkha Dutt here with the Mojo story. Today, we look at the horror that is emerging from the state of Karnataka, where reports now confirm that 16 Dalits were locked up and tortured in a coffee estate in Chikkamagaluru in Karnataka. A pregnant woman was assaulted so badly that she lost her baby. This is only one in a series of horrors that hit our headlines every single day. And yet, what is the political noise over? The political noise is not so much on what happened in Karnataka or in other parts of the country. The political noise instead is on this mass conversion meet in India's capital, where an Aam Aadmi Party minister actually had to resign after 22 vows associated with Baba Sahib Ambedkar were taken at this meet. The meet was described as anti Hindu. Mohan Bhagwat is among those who is saying that Varna and Jati has to end. But as atrocities against Dalits and scheduled tribes rise, and government's own data proves that, anti-conversion laws are very much the flavor of the political season. Why are there calls to stop conversions when there isn't enough focus on ending and containing atrocities against both Dalits and Adivasis? Let's introduce our guests on the program today as we look at this sensitive subject. Those pictures and details out of Karnataka are just horrific. Joining us on the program today is Riya Singh. Riya Singh is the founder of Dalit Women Fight. Welcome to the program, Riya. We're also joined by Rahul Easwar. Mr. Easwar has taken a critical position both against the mass conversion meet, but obviously, as anybody would do, against the atrocities of Dalits. Also joining us is one of our best-known academics. We're joined by Professor Surinder Jodhka, who's of course a professor at JNU. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And Mr. PKD Nambiar, political commentator and analyst, is with us as well. I just want to get brief remarks from you. Let me start with you, Mr. Nambiar. You know, you have been so acerbic against the mass conversion meet that we saw take place in the capital city. But today, Advocate Rajendra Gautam, the minister who had to quit from the AAP cabinet because he was present there, may turn around and say he's vindicated when you look at the kind of headlines that have emerged from Karnataka. You were on the program with him on this platform when he laid out the atrocities that his community has to face every single day. What would you say in the light of what's happened in Karnataka? I remember Karnataka recently tabled an anti-conversion legislation as well.
Okay. Well, I am. It's really shocking that when even in this particular time, in the modern time, people still consider themselves or ill treat them with the caste or we still have to call them like Adivasis or the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and etc. I think almost all the governments, including the present one, has not really been able to do the way it should have been converted, including the social organizations which talks about the equality, equal opportunities, and etc. have not been really successful. Maybe we may have a long history of the Varna system. That could be one of the reasons. But I feel what happened in Chikkamagaluru or in this particular incident, before coming to your show, I was talking to one of my very dear friend, who's one of the senior most police officer in there. But it is more than a Dalit atrocities. It is between an employer and an employee issue. But other than this, 4 days before or 5 days before, another incident took place in Bangalore, wherein a Dalit boy was brutal way he was treated, and he wanted to be converted. So and in the same way, my home state and Rahul's home state, you know that two people have been human sacrifice happened.
Women have been, yes.
Women were killed. So irrespective of the religion or the caste or any system, what we need to talk about atrocities about any individual, a human, is not acceptable in a civil society. And with this particular case, a pregnant woman is being tortured, simply not acceptable.
Does it make you reconsider your position on conversions?
Conversion is, to me, not acceptable. Most of the conversions in this country, I'll tell you.
Why? It's constitutionally a guaranteed right to choose your religion, and for religions to propagate if they so please, right? That is a
Barkha,
constitutional guarantee.
last time in your show, I said this way that if somebody, adult who voluntarily wanted to convert himself to another religion or whatever of faith he wanted to choose, it is his constitutional rights, and we give that in our country. Only one thing which I wanted to say, that 95% of the conversion, maybe even beyond that, are either lured or forceful conversion in India. For an example, I'll just tell you, I am from the place where I belong to. The entire land was of about 30, 40,000 acres of land belongs to my temple, my family temple once upon a time. Now, all those land has been taken away. And now being missionaries have bought those land from the foreign money, converted all the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe people. And I invite you, it's not seeing is believing, because sometimes when in the panel discussions people think that it is just to say. And all those people initially, when I was a kid, maybe I'm talking about in the 80s, it used to be 1 acre and a house was given to for conversion. Then now today 5 cents means it's समझ लो आपका 150 gauge. That is what you get, and a house you will get free of cost for the conversion. So this is the atrocity. In the name of education, in the name of
okay,
health,
hang on, Mr. Nambiar, hang on. You made your point. Let me get the others. Let me bring in Riya now. The fact is, you are arguing, Riya, Mr. Nambiar is arguing that this is all about coercion and luring. But the fact is that many people simply want to leave the fold of a faith that does not embrace them. And now we are seeing the mass conversion meet that took place in Delhi actually being criminalized. We are seeing the Aam Aadmi Party former minister being questioned, as it were, by the police. Your thoughts on what's happening?
I think there is a misconception that the state has to think about, that conversion, as Barkha, you clearly said, that it's a constitutional right. And in context of more specifically in terms of Dalits, I think conversion is something that is very political, and also for us to be out of this fold where we are just not included. So this criminalization is something that has been misunderstood by the government. It has happened and has been happening in several states, and we choose it by like full willingness. I don't think anybody was lured, and even if there are some entitlements which missionaries are giving, what is the problem if somebody who's landless? Basically, it's the responsibility of the state to provide land to the landless, job to the jobless, education to the one who's been deprived of education. So we have to stop saying these as some luring tactics or bribing or some compensation. It is basic entitlements being offered, which should technically be given by the state, not by any other person. So I do not think there's anything wrong. And conversion by Dalits is very political, and it's much needed. I would say that state has to really think and rethink of how they are trying to put this across in public.
Yeah, and as I said, what we're seeing today is a kind of criminalization that we are now seeing with what's happened with the former Aam Aadmi Party minister, which, by the way, his own party has clearly not stood by him either. So it isn't just the BJP. Let me bring in Professor Jodhka before I come to Rahul Easwar for a sort of a sociological perspective. What happens to identity? Mr. Gautam was asked, "Are you Hindu or are you Buddhist?" And he said, I am today Buddhist, but as we've seen with the affirmative action debate, identity doesn't quite necessarily change so neatly. And that is why this issue becomes extremely political. We have seen demands, for example, by Pasmanda Muslims, Dalit Christians, for some of the benefits that are kept for oppressed caste groups. Professor Jodhka, the fault lines of this conversation have changed in a way that was never before. You're seeing someone who attended a mass conversion meet being accused of being anti-Hindu today and be questioned by the police for it. Sir.
Of course, we are living in difficult times. It's not simply a matter of kind of Dalits converting to Buddhism or Christianity or any other religion. There's a larger kind of atmosphere in which kind of the whole country is, in some sense, there are limits to individual freedom, and I think one needs to raise that question. This is not isolated question. But at the same time, in this context, we need to foreground the question of caste. Now, Dalits are marginalized, Dalits are excluded socially, culturally, and politically, economically, in every sense of the term. So now you have, in some sense, aspiration to be part of the mainstream, to be citizens. They don't want to remain Dalits. Who wants to forget Varna? Who wants to keep Varna? Dalits are another one who are sticking to their identities These are identities given to them by the larger society and by the system and by the history that we are kind of living, and we have lived for many centuries. So the point is that conversion by themselves do not make much of a difference. Long time back, IP Desai had studied the village in Gujarat. I mean, you Dalit becomes Christian doesn't really make any difference to the upper castes. For them, the service has to be provided. But now we are talking about urban context where some amount of mobility has taken place, and they are mobilizing all possible resources which would make them full citizens. And if they feel more comfortable in one faith than the other, what is the problem? I mean, they are not giving up their constitution, their passport. Even if they were to give their passport and become citizen of any other country, it's their choice. Whether it is happening individually or it is happening collectively, or some institution is doing, everything is happening collectively in a sense. Nothing happens individually. There's no individual, completely free individual. If they are being stopped, that is also being done collectively by a kind of political opinion, by certain organizations. And if they are being given, as has been said earlier, if they get better education there, better healthcare there, why will they not go? They can go collectively, they can go individually. But is there a coercion there? If that was the case, they would complain. If somebody is complaining, then obviously it needs to go to the police and to the court of law. Then it's a different thing. But otherwise, I thought living in a democratic country, and this is right of everyone. I mean, people exercise their rights collectively.
Well, we have multiple states now that have passed anti-conversion laws that seek to end what the government calls a forcing or luring. And both you and Riya have made the point that luring is a very ambiguous phrase, and even question what's wrong if there's a school admission or a plot of land attached with it. I'll put that to Rahul Easwar. But first, a short clip. Mr. Nambiar and Rahul Easwar, you were both on this program when Rajinder Pal Gautam, who's since resigned and been questioned by the police, raised, I think, the fundamental question that many Dalits and scheduled tribes would ask today of a kind of, a Hindu dominant narrative that asks them, why do you convert? I'll just play this clip, short clip again. Listen.
मैं पूछना चाहता हूं कि हमारा कसूर क्या है? अगर हम हिंदू हैं तो फिर इतना नफरत क्यों? हमारी बहनों के साथ, भाइयों के साथ इतना अत्याचार क्यों? आप हिंदू मानते हैं तो फिर इसका विरोध करें ना। बल्कि मैं धन्यवाद करूंगा कि कम से कम मोहन भागवत जी ने, आरएसएस चीफ ने पहली बार मैं देख रहा हूं भारत में, पहली बार ऐसा हुआ कि उन्होंने खुद आके कहा कि अब वर्ण व्यवस्था और जातिवाद खत्म होना चाहिए।
अगर हम हिंदू हैं तो हमसे आप इतनी नफरत क्यों करते हैं? If you want us to remain within the Hindu fold and not convert, Rahul, then you cannot inflict this hatred on us. And if you inflict this hatred on us for the caste we were born into, why do you complain when we leave the fold? I think this is the heart of the conversation. Rahul, go ahead.
As a Hindu activist and as a person born in Brahmin family, I'm deeply apologetic and I'm deeply ashamed of what has happened. And it is a matter of truth that in our history, we have ill-treated them. That's what even Swami Vivekananda, Mahatma Gandhi all conceded. There is no shame in accepting the mistakes. Pujaniya Sarsang Chalak also pointed out our forefathers, have committed some mistakes, very grave mistakes. And
but these are not forefathers. This has happened yesterday in Karnataka.
4 centuries. And even yesterday, it is a matter of shame that this has happened. And even though I totally disagree with Barkhaji on feminism, but there are many aspects of intersectionality we should take into consideration. That's a reality. The caste is there, class is there. There are many intersectional community-wise problem is there. So we need to have a very intersectional kind of understanding of this reality. And the only thing, being a Hindu activist, I can request them, like sisters like Riya, is to stay back. Yes, there are problems, but we can sort it out. Yes, there has been historical injustices. There has been injustice happening. Last day, there was a Mathu, which many of you may remember. He belongs to a scheduled tribe community. He was killed in Kerala for taking some food. So there are such instances that really happened. We should have a soul searching and we should address it. But the only issue with conversion is when people are bribed or lured or people are offered money. Yes, we don't have much, especially the Hindu community doesn't have that kind of a resources. Temples are not in our control. We don't have that much resources to offer them and tell them to stay back. But like Mahatma Gandhi in Pune Pact told Ambedkar ji to stay back in the larger Hindu fold by renouncing the separate electorate, the only thing we can do is humbly request them to stay stay back. We will reform it. We can, for example, there has been many initiatives by Hindu organization, prominent Hindu organization against casteism. See, casteism has been a curse on Indian society, and especially Hindu society is a matter of fact we all agree with. But like Nambiarji rightly pointed out, we get too provoked, and it's a matter rightly provoked by when foreign funded conversions do happen. So that's the reason why we have to find a balance. We have to reform ourselves at the same point of time when foreign funding or hugely
But can I
international.
but can I ask you something, Rahul? Even if someone is able to prove a foreign funding link and say that there is proselytizing that is happening that is funded from outside, if you have to penalize somebody, penalize those who are doing that, who are offering the inducement, if at all. Why are we penalizing those who are converting? You're punishing them twice over. I don't
See,
understand it.
yeah, no, I concede that point. But please remember, Hindu society, especially the forward community, Hindu society gets panicked. And that panic of conversion was
About
rightly pointed
what?
out by
What is the panic about?
loss of Hindu community members, collapse of the Hindu structure. See, the core point, let me be very honest in admitting it. We have only hardly 5% Brahmins in India, the 20 to 25% forward caste Hindus in India. So there is naturally a population fear that is the subtext and context of many of the debates that's going on. Many times we don't air that openly, but we keep it under the carpet and air different
Well,
arguments.
at least you've not been politically correct. Let me just get PKT Nambiar before I go back to Riya Singh. PKT Nambiar, Riya Singh, and Surinder Jodhka both make the argument that if a poor man or woman is offered, let's say, we'll educate you, we'll give you a plot of land, the state has failed those poor people in many different ways, both social and economic, but also in the power structure of how their lives are in a sense organized. Why do you call that luring? I still have agency. I'm an adult. When I say I am saying, let's imagine I'm the person to whom it's my agency to say yes or no. It's my right given to me by the constitution.
I would say, I mean, this may be very easy to say that a couple of years ago, I had a maid servant at my home. She was having a cross on her this matha. So I asked her that, but her name was Radha. So I asked her that, Radha, but how come you have this? No, I wanted. She was from Jharkhand, and she wanted to get her son to be admitted to a Don Bosco boarding school in. Uh, she was not having her husband. She had to make him join for studies, so she had to change her religion. Now, if you call this a automatic transformation of from one faith to another faith, I can only say all is good in this country. Let the conversion take place. Let every Hindu or every scheduled caste be transformed to another religion. The problem is in many parts of the country. This is more of like you'll have to think from a little different way. Punjab, for an example, Gurdaspur. I'm talking about Gurdaspur. I traveled extensively in Gurdaspur. The people don't even change their name, and I have completely transformed to the Christianity. Andhra, you will be finding that in every there are villages, there are 20, 30 churches. I am not against, I don't have anything against Muslims or Christianity. I have so many people I employ, and I have some of my best friends are from Muslims in my international business in the Middle East. But the problem is that why do you, if is your religion so weak that you need to bribe somebody to get them onto your fold? Are you not really misusing
Define bribe.
somebody?
Define bribe. Define
I'm
bribe. Define bribe.
Bribe is, let me change the word bribe to buying. That you are buying somebody and saying that, boss, you have these weaknesses, you require these stuff. So what you do is that you come over, I will give you these things. You become today Krishnan become George, or tomorrow somebody else will become something else. And
Okay, let me
instead of
jump
you
in.
going to a
Let
temple,
me
you
jump
start
in.
going to a church.
Let
But
you
if,
raise the
if
you
voluntarily, no,
Yes.
voluntarily, I'll tell you, Saint Marthoma, and Rahul must be knowing it better than me. He's a better with these things. Saint Marthoma has converted a large number of Hindu Brahmins in Kerala. I'm talking about 1500, 2000 years before. That was maybe the first time the Christianity came to India. But is there anybody will say today that they are being converted forcefully? Nobody will ever say. But the problem is that when somebody's poverty is being misused and
let me
ask
take
them
your
to be
point. Let me
used
take
for
your point to the
converting that,
others.
That is a
This is-
different agenda altogether.
Okay, PKD, hang on. Let me bring in Riya Singh, the founder of Dalit Women Fight, into this conversation. Riya, the concept of the hybrid identity is something we should talk about. There is such a thing called the Dalit Christian, for example, and there is a lot of politics around whether access to, let's say, quotas, affirmative action, the socioeconomic benefits that are enshrined for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, should be accessed by those who convert. PKD raises this point of, in Punjab, some people don't even change their name. They simply flip, but they continue to actually hold the identity they were born into. I want you to speak a little bit about this hybrid identity.
See, Barkha, one is whenever, like, I want to get back to the point of luring. I think it is mostly in context of Christianity that people talk about luring. How come we have not been able to say this in terms of people converting to Sikhism, people converting to Islam? If there's a conversion of Islam, people will talk about love jihad or things like that. For conversion, Buddhism, I don't think till now in this panel I've not been able to understand that how come how your part is connected to Buddhism. I think with respect to what I understand as a Dalit person, Buddhism for us is also like conversion into Buddhism is also a part of collective identity that we are looking for. It's not just that Buddhism has never said that they'll give us schools. Even the Buddhist community doesn't have these many resources that they'll send us to schools or they'll send us to Don Bosco or schools like that. It is more about that where are we finding our collective strength to fight what's not stopping despite having reservations or the Atrocities Act in picture. Where do we have a community that backs us up? Like, for example, Hindus will have their community backing up. Christians have their group. But Dalits are out of it. Like, just it's not been 25 days. Karnataka itself, a family was fined for 60,000 for entering the temple. And then we have people who tell us that, why are we segregating ourselves from the Hindu fold? We have to. It was not about killing, murdering, or... So this is also a problem. Like, atrocities also just understood. Unless you kill a Dalit person, rape a Dalit woman, nothing else is atrocious. Nothing else falls under the Atrocities Act.
I think that's a very good point. I think that's a very good point, that atrocity is not only defined by overt, sort of glaring violence, assault, abuse, murder. There are daily atrocities, being made to have water from a separate glass, being hit in a classroom because you dare to touch the common matka. So many, the fact that even in urban homes, Professor Jodhka, in educated homes, there will be a separate glass for the person who sometimes sweeps the home because he or she might belong to a certain caste. I think Riya reminds us that atrocities come in different shades. And also the all-important point that this luring debate attaches itself to sort of the proselytizing Christian faith. But what about Buddhism, Sikhism, Islam? Professor Jodhka.
Yeah, I think question, perhaps, it has been framed in this particular manner, but we need to go back to our constitution, the fact that we are a democratic country, and as a democratic country, we need to talk about citizenship question, we need to talk about individual rights, we need to talk about freedom and fraternity. Now, this, in some sense, that we are having this discussion itself is a failure of India, and the blame lies with everyone. It's not like, a question of just the party in power or political state system. As a society, we have not really developed on those lines. When we talk about Dalits as being, or scheduled caste being Hindus, they are only demographically Hindus. The point that Riya has just made, or the point about, they're not being accepted in the larger Hindu community as equal. I mean, the very few arranged marriages where families would kind of find a man or a woman from another caste and get married just because they are Hindus. What does it mean to be Hindu? I think that also is a question that needs to be raised and needs to be engaged with. We can't just forget Varna and Jati, and those things are going to stay there forever. And we have seen, as you said, in urban context also, not only in temples, not only in kind of ritual affairs, even in corporate hiring, even in businesses. We know the urban economy is structured around caste and community. If you look at wealthy people in different parts of the country, they come from specific communities and they don't allow others to enter. So these are barriers which are very actively reproduced. So in this context, Dalits don't have too many choices. They need to, at some level, realize that individually they can't go very far. Lots of people who became officers under quotas, they realize nobody interacts with them. They live a lonely life. They went back to their communities, and that's how they began to talk about Dalitness in the 90s and more recently. Kashiram's origin comes from there. So Dalits are not very eager to stay within the Dalit fold. It was the larger society, urban society, not rural society, did not accept them. If somebody is officer, he or she would be known first by their caste identity and then as what they have achieved individually. So these are realities of urban India. These are realities of contemporary globalized India. Unless we confront them, we will not really be able to go very far, and we then
I agree.
it would not really take us very far as a country.
I do agree with that. Let me take this to Rahul Easwar in the end. Mr. Easwar, there's also politics here. One second, I'm just going to mute you till I ask my question. There's also politics here clearly, because of course the BJP politically would want a consolidated Hindu identity, and in some election battlegrounds of North India, we've also seen that pursuit. The BJP has actually courted Dalits very actively. The famous slogan of Mandal Kamandal was to try and shed the Brahminical upper caste image of the BJP and couple it with its political ambition. So there's that, and then there's elitism. I remember being an 18-year-old and being asked at St. Stephen's College, what is your caste? And saying proudly, oh, I don't believe in caste. And it took me many years to realize that I had the privilege to say I don't believe in caste, because I had never experienced oppression personally basis my caste. And I realized this when I went to cover the gang rape of a Dalit woman in Rajasthan, Bhavri Devi, who is still fighting for justice more than 2 decades later. So our privilege combined with the politics around it, isn't it too lazy to lecture people who are oppressed, who are brutalized, why do you convert, to interrogate them like they're criminals?
Yeah, Barkhaji, there are many nuances to this question. As you rightly said, even personally speaking, being born in a Brahmin community, I also have never experienced suppression. So it is very easy and fashionable for me to say that I don't believe in caste, because I have never suffered because of it. Similarly, the experience is there. That's the reason why we need to be very honest with it. We need to do a soul searching. We need to reach out. But only one request is there. There are 2 approaches. One, let us forget all about caste. Let us join as Hindus. That many times come up with Islamophobia, because you always need an other. You always need an other on the Islamophobia side so that we can unite as Hindus. That path is not right. But we always have a Gandhian path. You can belong to various communities, but at a higher level, we can join as Hindus on one side and Hindu Muslim on the other side as Indians. So this kind of nuanced, many-sided approach should be there. And Hindu identity needs to be saved. Being Hindus, it is our responsibility to save the large Hindu identity or framework.
Sorry, I'm out of time. I just have to say that, you have expressed twice in the program that there is a kind of panic in the Hindu community. And that is the part that I actually don't understand. But we'll have a longer conversation on this. I think today the bottom line is just this. You invoke Gandhi. We do need a Gandhi for our times, a reconciler instead of every issue has now become something that wrenches open the fault lines instead of bringing people together. So a Gandhi for our times is a thought I'm happy to end with, but for now I'll have to leave it there. Riya, Singh, Surinder, Jodhka, PKT, Nambiar, and Rahul Easwar. Thank you. And to our audience, see you tomorrow. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.